Sprint qualifying for the United States Grand Prix is over and Max Verstappen in the Red Bull is finally back on pole position, as McLaren seem to have lost a little bit of balance. But what did we learn? Well, in today's video I'm going to be taking a look at the data and doing a data analysis from sprint qualifying. If you enjoyed the video then please hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. Now, let's get into the video. As usual, I'll be talking about the top teams later on, so please do stick around for that. Yep, sprint qualifying is over and it is pole position and a return to form for Max Verstappen as he is back at the front in a sprint qualifying. And the circuit of the Americas looked like it wasn't very high grip as the circuit has been resurfaced. Even though it didn't look high on grip, Verstappen's pole time is 1.7 seconds faster than last year's sprint pole lap, showing just how much faster the circuit actually is, even if grip looked to be at a bit of a premium. With sprint qualifying, the drivers had to use the medium tyres in Q1 and soft tyres in Q3, meaning that there is a very large variation in lap time. So let's compare Verstappen's first lap in Q1 to his pole lap so we can see how the tyres and circuit evolved during the session. When you look at these two laps, there are two clear areas where Verstappen on the soft tyres had significantly more grip than the first part of qualifying, and the first part of that is here. This section is the high speed S corners in Sector 1, and you can see that Verstappen in Q3 can carry a lot more speed as the circuit grip has come towards the drivers, and also the soft tyres produce a lot more grip, allowing Max to push the car and have the confidence that it will probably stick to the circuit. At one point here, Max carries 22 km/h more speed, showing just how much more grip he does have. The next part where Verstappen has a big advantage in Q3 is at the penultimate corner here. In Q1, Verstappen has a giant stop going into the corner, almost like it is a different formula. The corner is incredibly tricky and it has caught out plenty of drivers, and there is a speed difference of over 35 km/h from Q1 to Q3, which is absolutely massive in F1, showing just how much better the softs were and also how much more grip there was when the circuit was cleaned up by Q3. Overall, there was a time difference of 1.8 seconds from the first lap to the pole lap, which is what you would expect probably going from mediums to softs in qualifying. Let's now take a look at the top speeds that the teams were able to reach, and what can we see here? Well, what we can see is that in a huge turn of events, for once, Haas are not the fastest cars in a straight line, as Hülkenberg and Magnussen both reached 328 km/h, but the fastest cars in a straight line were both Mercedes and Aston Martin, as George Russell and Fernando Alonso reached 330 km/h. McLaren, who modified their rear wing to not have mini DRS, were slower in the speed traps, as Norris only reached 325 km/h, maybe indicating that they are running a little bit more downforce for the race. And Williams were the slowest cars in a straight line, only reaching 323 km/h. This will be interesting to compare when we see what they have for Grand Prix qualifying, as they can change the setups after the sprint race. I just want to say that if you are enjoying the video so far, then I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. Now though, let's get back to the video and let's talk about Mercedes. For Mercedes, it was oh so close to pole position for George Russell, as he is in second place, and Lewis Hamilton is starting way down in 7th place. However, Lewis was actually on for pole position. Lewis did also say he was on for pole position until he came across the yellow flags of Franco Colapinto when he spun. Well, was that actually the case? Well, to find out, let's compare the lap times of Lewis Hamilton, George Russell and Max Verstappen. And you can see that, to be honest, Lewis was not really lying. He was actually on course for pole position. Through Sector 1 at the S section, Hamilton carries an incredible amount of speed, even more than Verstappen, and was actually up by a 10th. Then, just before Lewis came across the yellows, he was up by over 2/10 on Verstappen, meaning that actually yeah, it was possible that he could have got pole position. That being said, I do need to also say that he did have a snap at that corner. However, he says it's because of yellows, probably meaning that he had to back off more aggressively. Even so, it does look like, at least in qualifying trim, Mercedes are potentially looking very, very strong. The sprint race should also be good, but there are still going to be question marks about how they are over a full race distance. For Ferrari then, it was pretty solid for Charles Leclerc as he got ahead of Lando Norris, and Carlos Sainz is starting just behind Norris, meaning that all Sainz needs to do is let Norris have one of his classic starts and he should be ahead by turn 1. But for Ferrari, this is actually pretty decent. I did say this weekend they will probably not be as strong as Mercedes, and so far it does look to potentially be that way. Let's compare the times of the two Ferrari teammates so we can see how Leclerc just edged out Carlos Sainz. And when you look at the two laps, for the majority of the lap, it is actually Carlos Sainz who was the faster driver of the two. Leclerc really struggled through the high-speed S corners, and Sainz was actually over 3/10 faster at the end of that section in Sector 1. Leclerc clawed back the time in the slower speed corners, and then going into the last two corners, it looks as though Leclerc managed to carry more speed, potentially because he had more tyre life left due to maybe not being as aggressive in the S corners. For Ferrari, this is an opportunity to try and potentially close some points on Red Bull and McLaren, as they are the only team really with two drivers in the fight for the sprint race. Hamilton could be in the mix, but not so much as the Ferrari cars. For Red Bull, it is a long-awaited return to the front from Max Verstappen, and he is in a great place to win the sprint race. Red Bull have been working tirelessly to fix their car, and finally it looks like they might be reaping the rewards, at least with Max Verstappen, as Sergio Perez once again massively underperformed and was out in Q2. For Verstappen, let's compare his lap to just that of Russell. Now Lewis is not there, we can get a much better read on what happened between the two drivers. And what you can see here is that Verstappen was very fast in Sector 1. Albeit not as much as Lewis, but still faster than Russell. Russell does come back to him in the slower speed corners, potentially indicating there is still work to do for Red Bull. But when the speed builds back up, Red Bull starts to stretch its legs once again, and Verstappen once again becomes the fastest and takes pole position. Max for me should win the sprint race, but I think there will be still question marks when it comes to the main Grand Prix. And finally, for McLaren, it looks like fun time is over as Piastri had a time deleted and went out in Q1, and Norris is down in 4th place. McLaren brought a raft of changes this weekend, and it may have just taken the balance ever so slightly away from them, which they will need to tweak after the sprint race. However, it's not actually that bad, and you can see that when you compare the times of Norris and Verstappen. Norris is only slightly slower in the high-speed corners, and actually was faster for most of the lap. The area where it came undone though was that penultimate corner where Norris lost a huge chunk of time, and then potentially lost pole position. Looking at this, I still think McLaren should be out the front, and in the sprint race, I can see Norris coming past both Ferrari and Mercedes, provided he doesn't make a mistake off the line, but I don't think it will be enough for him to overcome Max Verstappen, at least in the sprint race. So with that in mind then, what are my predictions for the sprint race? Well, in P5 I'm going to go for Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes, P4 will be Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, P3 will be George Russell in the Mercedes, P2 will be Lando Norris, and I'm going to go for Max Verstappen to win the sprint race. But those are my thoughts. The question is, what do you guys think will happen? In the comment section down below, please do let me know. And as always, comment, leave a like, and subscribe for more F1 content. Thank you all so much for watching.